Hi, so I'm Hannah Tempest. I work at a company called Moobaloo. We're based in Bristol. We are a leading mobile app development and consultancy company. Get my buttons right. That's us. So we have 2 offices, about 57 people, bunch of awards, and we were founded in 2009, so just about when iPhone was kind of kicking off. It's the kind of fun stuff we do. That's it. We are made up of strategic mobile partners, end-to-end developers, UX, UI experts. We specialize in enterprise integration, so that is making sure things talk to each other, location-based tech innovation, beacons, and we work across multiple sectors. Some of our clients. So today we're going to have a look at Hargreaves Lansdown. Hargreaves Lansdown being a financial trading platform. We also work for companies like Bang & Olufsen, the Met Office, Alamy, all kinds of things. So I wanted to talk a little bit first about the mobile landscape today. When we started out in 2009, apps could just be silly little marketing tools. They could be little throwaway pieces of software that were really, really consumable. Apps nowadays are much more serious tools. They allow us to carry out our jobs, complete complex transactions, communicate with people. If the creators of Pimp My Cat are here, I'm sorry, it was just an example. It's actually a very good app. I recommend it. Back in 2009, there was a big shift in thinking about how we make apps. Within the web world, we were all quite comfortable with the build, get it out there live, learn what's happening, reiterate, try something else. Within the app world, in this sandboxed environment, quite often you would have something out there maybe for 12 months at a time without being able to guarantee an update would ever happen. I know I had 96 little numbers in my red balloon on my update bar. In September 2013, so quite recently, iOS 7 came out. Now, iOS 7 added a small technical decision that's changed our approach to apps quite a lot. So they added auto-update on their devices. What that means is that where previously we'd release an app and assume it may exist in its current form, we've now got a reasonable chance of being able to reiterate if we've made learnings, if we've made new innovations. It means that user feedback, analytics, innovations, they can be fed back into the app lifecycle straight away. And they should allow us greater experimentation and maybe even risk-taking. So context is something that I talk a lot about within mobile. What mobile has and desktop and other traditional medium lack is user context. So my phone knows where I am because it's got geolocation. It knows when I am because I've got calendar, I've got clock. It knows who I am because of all the various data from various apps that's in there. When you arrive at a website, unless you're logging in, it really doesn't have any information about you. It can't make that information structure personal to you unless you're able to give it some information. In the API world, user context is obviously really important. It means that we can feed in parameters to web services. Country lookup, for example, is a really, really good one. We can shortcut that. We know where the device is. We don't need to ask a user, what country are you from? I'll give you an example of a poorly done version of this. Back in my hometown, Bristol, our well-known bus company released an app to look up the timetables. Now, the first page of it was 7 text fields asking me, what day of the week is it? Where are you? Where are you going? Like, don't ask me. My phone already knows this information. It knows what day it is, knows where I am. So, shortcut that user journey for me, make that process more streamlined for me. So we're talking about getting information, making it relevant, making it timely, making it succinct. But how do you actually translate that complex web services and processes into design? Collaboration. So every good UX designer needs at least one tame developer, as we would put it. And there we go. So collaborating early and often, and it allows for integration to be considered alongside usability challenges. So if I'm working with our head of technology in a workshop scenario, we often joke he's the joy vacuum within the room. That's not true. He's full of joy and he's a very nice person. But what he does create is a really important dynamic within the creative process. So it's easy to make a big, crazy, stupid idea practical. It is very hard to make a small, dull idea interesting. So let's start big. Start big with that big creative force. But you've got to make sure there's someone there to put a lid on you every now and then. So we'll do our brainstormings and people like put a beacon on it, make it an augmented reality dragon menu, and all kinds of brilliant ideas. And then we just need our developer there, our tame developer, who is going to say, okay, yeah, maybe phase 2, or we'll have to look at the back end for that, I don't know if there's any developers here, but I'm sure there's a few who may be cringing inwardly at the thought of the design they're going to get covered in glitter at the end, when actually all they wanted was some sensible thought process at the beginning. Equally, there's going to be a lot of designers who remember conversations with heads of IT where they're just going, no, you can't do that. What were you thinking? Absolutely not. That's why the technical voice needs to be there right at the beginning. So not to suck the joy out of the room, just to validate creativity, to say, yeah, okay, we need this long to do that. Yeah, we'll do this in a future phase. Or if you thought about it in a different way, you could actually make this into a practical solution. So we'll have a little look at Hargreaves Lansdown and see how we've kind of applied those principles to that. Oh good, my video is working, I wasn't sure. So as you can see, Hargreaves is a pretty complex piece of data. It's won a lot of awards for UX specifically. It's also won an award for best use of APIs, and I think that's very telling, the fact that those two were won. It was top 10 in the App Store. I think 2.3% of all trades were carried out on it in the first week of launch. So it's obviously engaging users. It's obviously something that they were after. So what we want to do today really is kind of just scratch the surface of what we do to make something like this, but the principles that you can apply to any complex UX problem. Sorry, I forgot I've got a clicker. I want to press my laptop. So first thing you want to do is map the process. So any complex problem, you need to observe what people are doing currently. So whether you're observing them in the web interface, talking to them, I find that one works really well. Getting them to walk through stuff on paper, potentially. Next, we'd look at the information architecture. So if we know what the user is doing, now what does the app do? What is the structure of that app? Once we have that process, we can actually start looking at mapping APIs next to this structure. That allows us to validate early. It also means that if there's a gap in some of their data, and I'm sure you'll have clients who've done the same, that goes, oh, this is where we want to show this thing. It's like, okay, where's that coming from? Oh, we don't know that. So, this is a good way of kind of surfacing that early instead of when it hits development several months later and we've wasted time. So having those APIs mapped out, this is when we need to audit the data that's coming through, make sure that what's being exposed is user-friendly, that it's in a state that an app is going to be happy displaying. And then we need to define the negative. So mapping the negative is the difference between good and great UX. Finding out which of those journeys are working, which data might come through to you and break your interface, or things that might screw up your UI, basically. We need to make sure it's going to fall over gracefully, because we just accept that it will fall over. We don't pretend that what we build is perfect. So this is a process I use with clients to map out what the user is doing. Often people in business meetings have great ideas about what business requirements are, but maybe not such great ideas about what the user wants to do. The users are fickle, and they want to be able to do what they want to do as quickly as possible. So the idea of a T-bar is you identify what the main purpose of this particular process is. So in this case, it's a viewer market. We're looking at a market summary. What are the actions I had to engage in to get to that point? So I had to log in. I need to maybe get help as to how to use this thing. Do I need to search for it? Do I just want to see the latest? Now, once I've viewed that market, we kind of dig into that a little bit. I want to know what the peripheral behavior around that is. So, okay, we're viewing a market. Are we viewing the charts? Are we going to save it for later? Look at the fact sheets? And then after we've engaged in that behavior, what's the next steps? Do I place a deal? Are we going to monitor it? And obviously, we're thinking about what mobile offers here, so we're going to use notifications there. What we're hoping is by the time we get to number 3, notifications, we're kind of feeding back into number 1. We're creating a cyclical life cycle within an app and a decent use of data. So once we've got that out there, what we want to have a look at is the information architecture. So we know what our user process is. What is our app structure? What is the data structure that was required to enable that process? So I've just grabbed a little bit off one of our documents here, so you can see there's screens. We say, yeah, there's a button, there's a web view, there's a pop-up, all of these things. And as we get down, you'll see that we're looking at the kind of dashboard screen there, where we've got 4 panels and the off-screen panels. We want to welcome, maybe we do want that for the first time. We don't want that every time, because that would be pretty annoying. And then we want to be able to search, see markets, etc. When we were talking about context earlier, this is where it can come back in. What variables, what parameters do I already know about my user that I can leverage at this point? So for example, the welcome on a simplistic level, I can already track the number of visits. So I can say, okay, well, first one, yeah, here's your welcome message. Second visit, I'm not going to show that. More interestingly, maybe on market summary, account country, I can already ascertain that by either geolocation or maybe from some of their account information. Time, the phone knows the time, hopefully. So we know what is latest, we know how old that data is, and we can use that to order and highlight what's important. So here's some lovely data. That's what actually comes through when you put that get summary in. What we're going to have a look at there, is what information there actually needs to be shown. We don't have to show all of that. We need to show what's necessary for our user to finish their process. We map that process. We know what they need, hopefully, if we've done it properly. They need to know the name. They want to know the current price. They want to know if it's gone up or down. They want to know what that is as a percentage. It's good to know that that's in a web service. If that percentage wasn't, we'd have to calculate it. If we have to calculate it, we're holding secure financial data on a device. Not everyone's happy about that. So that's when we might say, well, yeah, we can calculate your percentage, but actually, if you provide it to us, it means we're not holding any of your valuable data, and you don't have to worry about security. There are some, though, that we'll use that are invisible. So update time, we're not going to show that. However, we are going to allow it to order that information. We're going to make sure that that API informs how our information is presented. So this is kind of where we end up. We start making these tiles. You can kind of see we've got the name there, we've got our current price, we've got our percentage change, our net change. Net change plus or minus, I've just put up the side there. Now that's because we are displaying it. Are we displaying it as a string, as actual words. Not necessarily. We can show that as red, or we can show that as blue, depending on whether it's up or down. So using API information doesn't necessarily mean displaying API information. And I think if you've got your tame developer next to you, that's hopefully a really good point to kind of talk to them about, okay, well, we have this. What does it actually mean to a user? How does it help them in the processes we've mapped? But then obviously we've got to come back in and break it quite seriously. So we'll try, and this is a good one to have a developer on call to do, please can you go away and find me the worst, the best, and the average data from this set, please. And they go away and they do stuff, and they come back with one really ugly line and one quite nice one, and then something, usually one in the middle somewhere. And that should be all you need, really, to, at the beginning stages, test a design. You don't need to put every possible variation of data. You can go for the not quite good, bad, ugly, but close, really, and get them all into one space. Then you're going to have a pretty good idea that you're validating your design. So this is what we end up with when we've done all that. We've kind of got these APIs showing. You can see we're kind of using all these hidden APIs to maybe order how that data is displayed. But animation is really the most important aspect of UX. It's so difficult to get your designer's ideas over into a developer in a flat wireframe way that often you present your designs. You can use it, to hint at functionality, so feedback and feed-forward animations. If there's something on a second page, we can just nudge it out the way and show people that there's something else there. When we've got minimal design styles, which are obviously quite popular right now, animation is what gives the app the premium feel. It hints at the depth of animation. The layering can show that there is information behind one set of information. And we can help out the back end sometimes as well. This is one you wouldn't know unless you were collaborating really closely. We can say, okay, well, we're trying to make 20 calls to a web service right now, and it's sometimes slowing performance on some devices. Well, let's just put a little animation there for half a second, and we can spread out those web calls and potentially improve the actual performance of an app. So it's sort of thinking laterally about all the different ways how design and dev can really collaborate to make things usable. So some of the tools we would use, you can use things like Flash to make mock-ups. I don't know if anyone remembers Flash. That was my job before this, and I noticed I was going obsolete. So. What we do sometimes is take little Vine videos of things that we find that are nice and just stick that URL into our web wireframes so developers can just really quickly see what we're talking about without us having to go away and spend a few hours trying to mock up a Flash animation or whatever that's not going to be used. There's obviously lots of tools out there, things like Pixate, things like Proto.io, which are brilliant for getting your ideas across. Interestingly, though, the lo-fi tools I find are often the best. So Hargreaves, for example, the entire animation briefing was done by us sitting down with a developer, getting everything out on paper, and just really making sound effects as to what we wanted for various places. So, and going, yeah, I want that to do a whoosh, but then it's got to boink at the end, And he'll be like, well, you can have the boink, but it's got to have a wibble as well, Brilliant. We've had this whole thing. We've got a great big documented, absolutely mental wireframe of sound effects and scribbles and collaboration. And all of this has allowed us to create a really great user experience. So for me, while a technical challenge as an app, I think the takeaway from this project is really that having a good relationship with developers is at the heart of the whole process, and communication, collaboration at every point. And ultimately, I think that's what will create excellent user experiences. So thank you very much.